1-800 is the number. News12li@news12.com is the email. Now, I know, Dr. Zaborowski, you wanted to comment on something Sergio said before the break.
You talked about the attraction to gangs,
Yeah.
and we found in our research, we used the term the 3 C's: cars, cash, and clothes. These are the 3 things in terms of when kids see others having extra money, starting to drive those nice fancy cars, and starting to wear the clothes to do the walk like the young person mentioned before, that these are attractions, especially in areas, as you mentioned, low economic areas where the schools are perhaps not performing the way they should. Young kids see the attraction in that area. And programs, after school programs, evening programs, is what you need to sort of counter that kind of attraction. And prevention costs so much less, Lee, than the prosecution end of it. Exactly, than the incarceration end of it.
All right, back to the phone calls now. Karen from Freeport is on the line. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Hi. My question is, what are the officials doing in the schools to help integrate the diverse population that's growing within the gang community? Because I do agree with Sergio that there is a rise in gang activity, not only gang activity, but other activities within the community that might be gang-related. And I feel that possibly police officials are not really looking at the racial makeup of the police department so that they can have more maybe racially diverse groups of police officers that can go out into the community to relate to them. What's being done regarding that issue?
Okay, I'll throw that over to our law enforcement guests. Detective Quinn, Jim, whichever one of you wants to answer that.
In our last recruiting class, the Nassau County Police went into these communities and asked people to take the test. We had a test last year. They just hired their first group. I don't know the exact racial makeup of the new hires, but we go into these communities. A lot of the youths can't make, they don't have the education, they have previous criminal records, and it's a long process to get through. We would love to have more minorities on the police department. We want qualified minorities, educated, and then we put them in the community, and they work out very well.
Yeah, Kavan, does the diversity make a difference? Will the kids who are either African-American or Hispanic relate more to law enforcement that is either African-American or Hispanic?
Absolutely. I think the diversity definitely would make a difference. Also, I mean, as our Latino Hispanic population is growing in our county, obviously you have an influx of individuals that don't speak the language, don't speak the English language. You definitely have to have somebody who is bilingual to converse with other different types of people of the group, so I definitely think it makes a difference.
Jim, is diversity a situation for you in Suffolk? Would you like the police force to be a little more diverse to deal with the gang problem?
Actually, the issue that you just raised there, having bilingual detectives or police officers, is something that's very important, and it's something that came up in the case we discussed earlier in Hampton Bays, where all of the defendants, all of the witnesses spoke only Spanish. They were all Mexican immigrants.
So you needed a translator to work with them?
Absolutely. And it was very important, actually, right just prior to the plea, we had a second detective assigned to the case to work with me and to interview witnesses, and he was invaluable to me to help gather evidence, which led to the plea. Right. So absolutely, it's an invaluable asset for us.
Right. Lisa from Merrick is on the line now. Lisa, you have a question?
I just have a statement.
Okay.
I called a few minutes ago to address exactly what the kids that were interviewed said. I work at the high school level, and the gang situation is growing more quickly than a lot of us realize. And after the shooting last week, so many students, to me personally, have expressed their concern. Their concern for their safety. They're being afraid to be in school. And, you know, I just think their needs should be addressed.
Paul, I know that's part of you do a lot of work with schools on Long Island.
We do a lot, but the schools have to contact us for our intervention to be effective. But going into the schools, we find that getting the kids together to talk about the issues and to focus on ways in which they can work with the administration to sort of get to the situation and with the community groups.
Are they afraid to show up?
They're afraid to show up sometimes because of what's happening. So you have to have a police presence, but there has to be an atmosphere in the school where kids are willing to talk about the issue. And we can get to that point if we start with the actually in the elementary schools, getting kids to be aware of what. Yes, because that's where the wannabes start in the elementary school when they're attracted.
Sergio, you know your group doesn't. It's not administrators. It's not adults. It's not teachers. It's kids on their own level helping these kids. So I would imagine a situation like this caller is talking about, your group would be perfect to help in a situation like that.
One of the things that there's a very high demand for our services right now, and one of the reasons why it's a double-edged sword. We're happy that we're a resource to so many communities, but there is a lack of resource out there. Many of these parents and community members here on Long Island need to be aware, and they need to understand that this gang issue can affect anyone and everyone.
Sure. Like somebody said before, you could just be walking along the street wearing the wrong color that day.
I don't want people to walk away believing that this is only an African American and Latino issue when we have schools in Mastic Beach, for example, that are shut down at the middle school level because a small local neighborhood gang have gotten into a little brawl. That's gang activity.
Right.
The Farmingville assault was gang activity. So it's extremely important that individuals know and understand that this issue can affect everyone. When you have a homicide in an old Westbury community, I asked those members of that community that think gang violence cannot affect them if they were walking or jogging, if they were walking their dog or jogging past that particular incident, do they think they would have been safe? And, a name doesn't have a bullet. And a bullet doesn't have a name, and that's extremely important that everyone understand that this issue can affect everyone. And also a very important point is the fact that many people also hear that the youngster was involved in a gang. So what? The youngster was 14, 15, 16. I got out of the gang when I was 18. Does that mean if I would have been shot and killed at 17, 18 years old before I made that transition, my life was worthless? And I think that's a very, very powerful and important point.
Very good point.
What schools can't do, they can't get to the position where youngsters and parents feel that they're powerless to do anything. And the programs have to give power back to the parents, to the kids who want to do well, and the schools then get a more positive atmosphere.
Now, but the programs cost money, and the schools are struggling with money problems.
That's right.
But definitely from the county standpoint, the county, does have its fiscal constraints, but this is something that we believe is very important, and it is necessary to be done. However, the one thing that's not being done, and I actually applaud Family and Children's Association because they did it in the Roosevelt School District, is they actually intervened and were working within the school district with the educators. And I think that's what we need to start to do. I mean, our kids have so many. During the periods of the day, they spend a good portion of their time
So go in before the educators ask for help. Is that what it is?
Absolutely.
If you see the problem,
or working with them and having intervention groups. That's actually where I think I actually start to really get to know Sergio and Valerie McFadden, who you did an interview with earlier on. Is I met them at this program because I went to mentor with these kids, and I think it's essential that we all start to meet on a meeting ground and they start to see the same faces.
All right. Well, that's what part of this discussion is about. Talking about it too, getting it out in the open. And Venus from Uniondale is on the line with us right now. Venus, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. First of all, I'd like to commend all of you for your efforts and to personally thank you for the support of our youth and our community. I'd like to know specifically for Uniondale what after-school programs we have that are geared towards our teens. I am the mother of a teenager, and I have a teenage niece and nephew who have been approached by gang members in an effort to recruit them. Thus far, they have resisted them. However, the children have mentioned to me that they would be interested in an after-school program, something related to sports or music. Those are their interests right now that would keep them off the streets, something that they can go to directly from school, so they're not even in an atmosphere where they can be approached by anyone. And this question is for you, Legislator Kevon Abrahams.
Absolutely. Well, one of the big programs, and they joined me at a press conference that we had on Friday, is the UCC, the Uniondale Community Council, which basically has all different types of after-school programs. They have art, they have dance, they have everything under the sun. It's one of the programs that I'm very proud of. But it doesn't stop with them. I mean, I know this was specific to a Unionville question, but we have agencies in Hempstead, Operation Get Ahead. We have Freeport Pride, obviously in Freeport. I support Roosevelt.
Is all this information in the schools? I mean, can a parent, a worried parent, go to the school and say, what do you got to help my kids in the afternoon? What do you got to keep my kids busy and keep them out of gangs?
Well, I think the programs have been here for a long period of time, but I agree. The message of knowing that these programs are here is somewhat difficult. So I think that's where we got to do definitely a better job among our educators, among our elected officials, among our community-based organizations, is making sure that they actually know, the parents know that these programs exist.
In Suffolk County too, there's Nassau, but in Huntington, in the Longwood School District, and Santa Mauritius, they too have programs and agencies are working after school. Again, do a lot of parents know about it? I don't think as many do, Lee. I think your point was well taken that the information is not getting out there, but the after-school programs, they're there. they're there to be used.
Sergio?
In the Uniondale community, we were just one of the designated areas that received funding through the last request for proposals that came out from the Nassau County Youth Board. Uniondale Community Council teamed up with Strong Youth Incorporated to do some very intense intervention and prevention work, where we're bringing together a Uniondale Violence Intervention Partnership. We have clergy, we have law enforcement, we have community-based organizations, because we realize that it's that collective effort that's really going to work. We're also in the schools, and we're not running our program after school. Why? Because we're working with actual gang-involved youth, and what we're doing is we're working with them throughout the school day. And that's very important. You know, you're not going to get a gang member to come to an after-school program.
Right, exactly.
They have to save face, and for various reasons, they won't come.
All right, Maria from Central Islip is on the line for us. Maria?
Yes, my question is about parental involvement. A lot of the children in gangs today don't have their parents involved in their lives as much as they should. And should parents be held responsible for their children who are arrested for gang activity?
I'll throw that out there to anybody who wants to answer that one.
Some of the things that the parents can do to prevent their children from becoming gang members is check their rooms, check their school books. When they go into the child's room, the youth's room, check their dresses for weapons, check their dresses for colors, check it for marijuana, check it for cocaine, check writings on the book. If the parents become more aware, they'll let the school know, and the school will become more aware. We'll all become more aware. The parents are a major component of eradicating gangs in the county, both counties. And besides the youth board, the police, the awareness, the parents are a key factor, as well as the church.
And we hear that so many times with problems involving our youth. So it's a good. Go ahead, Jim.
Sure. For a second, I do agree with what the sergeant just said. And one of the things Mr. Spode has done has been proactive. He sends us out to schools. I've gone to many schools and spoken to either faculty or students, parents. And I think one of the difficulties in one school district in particular I can think of, where I went and addressed some parents and spoke to them about gang involvement, things to look for with their children. And the general response was, my child is not in a gang.
Yeah, not my kids.
And this was actually, I was brought in to help mediate a problem that had occurred at the school that was a gang issue, and the parents looked at me and said, not my child.
Right.
And I think
Lack of awareness.
Yeah, we got to be a little more honest with ourselves.
That's right.
All right, just a reminder, if you'd like more information on tonight's show, log on to our website, news12.com. And as we go to break, some thoughts from some Uniondale students on whether they think police are doing a good job fighting gang violence. We'll be right back.
I don't think police do enough because they're just trying to arrest people. They're not really trying to find out why people join gangs.
I think they're trying their hardest. That's what I think. I think police are trying their hardest.
I think they're trying, but more can be done.
I don't know what they're trying to do, but what they're doing isn't working, because the more they retaliate, the worse the gangs get.
If you are one of the millions of Americans